My 42M wife 45F cheating after 22 years and a kid. Hard to imagine leaving. Now with even more updates, navel gazing at the bottom. Okay, so here I am. My wife Ann, not her real name. Unless it is. Fuck you Ann. And I have several groups of friends. One is a group of 10-12 folks who are mostly parents of our daughter's friends. We ended up liking this group a lot, which felt really lucky. We regularly have parties, so Ann and I are at one, and I'm in the kitchen getting some more beer cheese soup. I walk out of the room and Ann is talking to Eduardo. Eduardo is not this guy's real name, but he's an Eduardo. Picture a tall, dark and handsome guy with a chiseled jaw from South America named Eduardo. That's exactly what he looks like. We're all thinking of exactly the same person. Eduardo is the father of my daughter's 7th best friend. Ann and Eduardo are having some kind of conversation. They don't notice me right away, and I overhear Ann say, "Do you really think I'm talking to you about this right now?" Which is weird, because that's kind of an intense thing to say, and Ann is not an intense or confrontational person at all. Also, she and Eduardo don't have the kind of close relationship where that would be a thing you would say. Whatever, I'm curious, but after the party I ask what she and Eduardo were talking about and she says she can't remember, because Eduardo is always so dull. More on this later. I don't argue, I'm pretty drunk, we go to bed. But the next day it bothers me. So I do what you do, I check her phone. Also, I've been reading this sub for days, and can we stop apologizing for checking the phone? What's the alternative? She knows my code, I know hers. Nothing on her phone, but I noticed something. She has no text conversations with Eduardo. None. This is impossible. Eduardo's daughter is my daughter's best friend. We communicate with them all the time. Arranging play dates, pickups, drop-offs, exchanging photos, etc. She doesn't Snapchat or anything, but it seems clear she's just deleting all her conversations with Eduardo. At this point, I'm in if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck territory, but what I can't figure out is how she's doing it. We are busy people. I work mostly from home. Where does she find the time? Maybe I'm being paranoid. But after a few false starts I finally figure it out. I call her chiropractor, where she has a standing bi-weekly appointment. When was the last one, I ask. They are confused, because they do not know she has a standing bi-weekly appointment with them. Fuck. Okay, so to vent for a second. Eduardo is a great-looking guy. Really handsome. But you know those commercials about the most interesting man in the world? Well, Eduardo is like the opposite of that. He is the least interesting man in the world. My wife and several friends have a running joke about just how ducking dull this man is. He does website maintenance and jogs. He jogs so much. The only thing he loves more than jogging is talking about jogging. I could go on about how boring this man is, but I'll just give 2 quick examples. At the least dinner party with these friends, Eduardo, with tears of mirth in his eyes, told a 20-minute story about how his boss made an appointment with him for a meeting later in the day, but then got a stomach bug, and so when Eduardo went to the meeting room, no one was there. Get it? He was gonna have a meeting, but then he didn't. Holy shit, that's some good stuff. Perhaps a better example is that this group of friends have a yearly murder mystery party, with a different host each year. And for the last 3 years, Eduardo has been the corpse. That's because after the first time, everyone involved realized that Eduardo was simply too uninteresting and awkward to be asked to play one of the characters. It was painful to watch him try. His personality really just meshed with the dead body, so he does that, to save everyone else the cringe. This is the guy my wife has chosen to duck. I can't get over it. Like, if Ryan Gosling was in town, and decided he needed to throw my wife a bone, I'd get it. It's Ryan Gosling, what are you gonna do? But this ducking guy. Anyway, I guess I have 2 questions. 1. I'm leaning toward not telling his wife. I noticed people on here are always like, tell their wife and his company and his family. This seems kinda ducked up. Like, I get the argument that if someone was cheating on me, I'd want to know. But that's me, I'd want to know. Some people might have nowhere to go, and would rather just be happy in ignorance. Some people might want to put their children first, and this just makes it painful. It seems that the argument for telling actually amounts to this: I would want to know, therefore everyone else in the world would obviously want to know also, therefore I'm gonna nuke these people's marriage from orbit. Seems like that thinking lacks nuance. Can someone convince me that attitude is wrong with an argument that isn't duck that guy and duck your cheating wife? 2. My wife is a som. She cannot support herself on her own. My daughter will not be better off staying with her on the street, and she will not be better off staying with me and no mother. So I need to figure out another solution. Are there people here who have made it work after something like this? Did you just power through? Open the marriage? Finally, Thanks for reading this. I tend to deal with physical and emotional pain with humor, but also, I dunno, it's hard to imagine me ever thinking of myself as anything but the guy who was so inadequate that my wife felt like she should throw away 22 years to finally get some different pee-pee. Which, you know, that sucks. Added more information. Okay, so I wrote this, had 3 beers, and went to bed. I am, in fact, at the beach with my wife, daughter and her in-laws and sister as I write this. Woke to discover that I am a loser, a doormat, and the asshole for not telling Eduardo's wife. There are officially too many posts to reply to individually, and I don't know what I think about a lot of them anyway. It has been, I dunno, almost 2 weeks since the party. It's been 3, I guess now 4 days since I called the chiropractor. Someone was like they wouldn't tell you anything. Don't know what to tell you. The way that conversation went was I called them, said I was Anne's husband. I have been to that office before and she wasn't sure she was gonna be able to make her next appointment. They said she didn't have a next appointment. I asked when the last one was, and they said December. I hung up, because all of a sudden I was covered in sweat. I don't have any other proof. I've tried to think of alternate explanations, but I can't really come up with anything. That said, I don't have irrefutable confirmation. I haven't confronted her or talked to anyone in my life about it. I thought maybe this went without saying, but I have never cheated. I got a lot of feedback about my reluctance to tell Eduardo's wife. This community seems to feel like it's a given that you have to do that. And I feel like I should point out that elsewhere on the internet, it's not just a given that disclosing is the right thing to do. I'll link to this site as an example of the counter-argument. While this seems to have escaped a few posters, I wrote this under advice because I haven't decided yet. I think the pro-disclosure argument that resonated with me the most was one about self-respect. If I'm going to try to remain in my marriage, it's gonna have to be in a way where I can continue to feel like a man. If I leave my marriage, it's probably a moot point. This friend group is a relatively tight-knit group of people, and I can't imagine she wouldn't find out the story. Finally, if I had to guess, I'm going to get more hate for this, but I'm having at least some trouble relating to some of the responses I got. I like to think I'm actually a pretty emotionally intelligent person. Here is how I feel. I feel like a cuck. This is not real surprising, a cuck is a guy with a cheating wife. Many of the people on the sub, I imagine, have been where I am. But it's humiliating. I very much doubt wife is having an emotional affair with Eduardo, the beige Honda Accord of men. She is not in love with him. She is ducking him, presumably because she was bored or unsatisfied with ducking me. That is incredibly emasculating. And feeling emasculated is rage-inducing. What I don't feel is hatred for my wife. She possessed the same qualities today that she did 2 weeks ago, when I loved her unreservedly. The difference, if I'm honest, is that it seems clear that she doesn't love me as much as I thought she did. Maybe as much as she used to? I don't know. I guess what surprises me is the idea that many here have that because someone betrays you, you stop loving them. I'm not there. Maybe it'll come later. Finally, a brief word to the nice guys finish last people, of whom there were several. I'm a middle-aged man. This morning I'm 11 pounds overweight. I own a medium-sized business, a couple cars, a nice house designed by a fancy architect. I have a large group of friends, and really only 2 or 3 very close ones. I have a beautiful daughter and a wife who is screwing somebody else. I wonder how these guys who are finishing first are doing it, because I am, like most of us, finishing somewhere in the middle. A final, not particularly action-packed update, so I'm still on vacation with the fam. After 2 days of lying and saying that I had a migraine, I tagged along with everyone to a nearby island covered in driftwood and partially petrified trees. My daughter and I climbed trees. My wife watched and ordered us into various poses so she could take pictures to preserve the memories. It was just wild how normal and wholesome everything seemed. I felt like I was watching a movie. The people who told me I needed facts, not supposition, you were right. I didn't realize how easy it was to recover the last 30 days of messages on an iPhone. So I did that. One thing that's so crazy about this is that I have my wife's phone code, and she does absolutely nothing to protect her phone. So I went through the deleted messages. There was one between her and Eduardo, which seems like there would be more, just in the course of normal communication, but maybe not? It was a text from my wife telling him that I would be the one picking up my daughter from their house and was on my way. That was it. Couldn't be more boring, except that I do find it weird that she deleted that message. It wasn't any kind of code. I did in fact go pick up my kid at their place. I am the administrator of our Apple family thingy, so I went in and activated location services and found my location for my wife's phone, which was off because I'd never turned it on. Presumably I can now track her movements, or at least her phones. If she turns it off, that'll be a red flag, but she isn't particularly tech-savvy, and I'll be surprised if she knows how not that she hasn't demonstrated the capacity to surprise me. Also, because of the Apple plan, I have a series of backups of her phone going back months. I downloaded these to my laptop, so they don't go anywhere, but I don't have time at the beach to F around with how to extract more deleted text messages from those backups, although my understanding is it's possible. I called my doctor to schedule an STD test and talked to a nurse. I thought I could just order through her, but she tried to put me through to my primary care physician, at which point I told her I'd have to call her back and hung up. My wife and I have the same doctor, so I suddenly imagined what our doctor would think when I asked for an STD test. Probably that I had cheated. That's cool, I could just explain to her, no, you don't understand, it's not me. See doc, my wife is intimately unsatisfied, so she's been getting plowed by a bottle of Unisom disguised as a tall Uruguayan man, so I'm gonna just walk into a minute clinic when I get back home. Finally, and we're venturing into TMI territory here, so easily offended readers will want to tune out now. I obviously haven't felt like sleeping with Aunt since the party, so last night after everyone was in bed I decided to look at my phone and, flush the pipes a bit. If anyone is still reading this who finds themselves in my situation, do not do this. Jesus fucking Christ. After about 30 seconds of watching some muscle-bound dude who looks nothing like Eduardo rail on a woman who looks nothing like Anne, I was immediately recreating the entire thing starring my wife in my head, and could not get it out. That's the closest I've come to freaking out. Decided to stop doing that and just stare at the ceiling for a couple hours. That's all I've got. Theoretically I now have a way to track Anne, and a time next chiropractor appointment when I suspect she'll be up to something. I'll write a new update post if I want figure out what's going on in 2 AM in the mood to be berated by internet strangers. One final thing. I'd like to briefly respond to the "how could you just stand by and let her do this?" You've confused love with control. I don't let my wife do anything. She is a grown-ass woman who makes her own choices. If the reason that my wife is faithful to me is that I track her movements and angrily threaten her if she strays, what is that loyalty worth? To me, nothing. I don't know if my marriage is salvageable, but if it is, it won't be because I forced her to be faithful, it'll be because I believe she wants to be. You're a very nice guy. So nice that you don't want to hurt your cheating wife or her AP. You're so nice that you don't want to hurt Eduardo's wife because you've convinced yourself she doesn't really want to know. No, the only ones you are willing to hurt are yourself and your daughter. Daughter? Yes. How long before she finds out? Your wife might be smart enough to keep it under wraps, but I don't think her AP is. Your daughter will find out. In fact, next time you tell her you love her, see if she looks away. She may already know. It's time to grow them back. Start asking how her chiropractor visits are going. See if she actually feels any guilt. See how she lies straight to your face each time. Then kick her out. She has friends, she has family. Your daughter stays. Time to get your self-respect back.